Hello and welcome to Lois and Morgana Davidson Art. It's Morgana here, and today I'm going to share with you my process for painting this simple yet elegant boat scene using watercolour. The first step is to lightly draw your boats in pencil roughly a third of the way up your watercolour paper and paint over them with your preferred brand of masking fluid. This will protect them from the wash that I'm about to put down and help keep those outlines really nice and sharp and clean. To prepare for the wash, I'm covering my entire piece of 1/4 imperial sized watercolour paper with clean water, then I'm going to leave it to sink in for roughly 30 seconds. Then, for this wash, I'm actually going to paint it upside down. This is because for me, I find it so much easier and more natural to paint from the top of the paper to the bottom and to go from dark to light, which is actually the reverse of what I need to do for this painting. So, by flipping your board, you can see here that I'm starting with my darker paint, which is Payne's Grey, and using the water that is already on the paper to draw that colour down to the bottom of the paper. Doing this means that the colour will lighten naturally as your paint on your brush runs out as you get towards the bottom of the paper, and is actually a really lovely simple way of getting a single colour graduated wash. Then once I'm done, I can flip the board back and check that I'm happy with the way that graduation looks once it's the right way up again, which I am. So a tip for making sure that a wash like this stays really clean and flat is to try not to go back in and add extra paint and water once the wash is down. So I'm going to put it aside now and leave it to dry. Once the wash has dried fully, it's time to remove the masking fluid from the boats, which you can do just by gently rubbing with a clean fingertip. Then they'll be ready to paint. At this point, it's entirely up to you which colours you use to paint your boats. I chose raw sienna, which is what I'm beginning with here, accompanied with some light red and a little lamp black for a clean, limited palette of colour, which I think is quite effective against that pale grey background. But by all means, go wild and choose whichever colour paints are your favourite and use those. To add some darker detailing lines around the tops of the boats, you can either use a small fine detail brush, which I'm using here, or a liner or riddle brush, which I will demonstrate in just a moment. The liner brush is a little faster, but does require a somewhat steady hand. A great way to add a little simple weathering to the side of the boats is to use the tips of a flat brush and a very little dark coloured paint, and then simply drag the tips of the brush downwards, creating these loose marks. I will admit this technique is more effective on cold pressed or rough paper, but you can see here that it does still work on hot pressed paper too. To put in the posts that these boats are moored to, I'm using the edge of my flat brush for these simple straight lines, but keeping them a little broken looking and raggedy so that they appear weathered as well. Colour wise, I'm using a little of the light red with a touch of the lamp black too to just darken it down. Now this, as they say, is where the fun begins. I'm using my favourite sword liner brush to create these long, loose reflections in the water, but you can use any brush for this really, provided it has a nice fine point and can carry plenty of paint and water to manage these long lines. You can make these lines as long or as short as you like, depending on the size of paper you choose to paint on. I wanted these reflections to become a real focal point for this piece, so I've made them rather longer than the posts themselves. To put in the reflection of the boat hulls, I'm still using my sword liner brush, but I've turned it horizontally and I'm using the curved belly of the brush to create these soft, loose marks. A nice optional finishing touch is using a little white gouache to mark a name or some numbers onto the dark part of the boat's hull. You can do this with a fine detail brush as I'm showing here, or an opaque white gel pen should work as well. Take the tape off your painting once you're finished, but do be certain that your painting is properly dry first, or you can risk smudging anything that hasn't fully dried. Take it from me, there are few things more heartbreaking than accidentally smudging the work that you've just put hours into finishing. And here is the finished painting. Thank you everybody so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed the video, and why not give these boats a go yourself. A full list of everything I used today will be in the description below the video, but for now that is everything from me, so I wish you a wonderful rest of the day everybody, and very happy painting.